on with her. I hope she's there she is. There she is. Hey D, got you in here, baby.
Finally.
In here.
Gotcha. Hi,
Finally.
Gigi.
Hey.
Just in
Bring
time.
the noise, bring the noise.
Yeah.
Good evening to each and every one of you. Welcome. Music Lovers LTD live on a Friday night. It's yours truly, the King of Oldies here, along with my crew. We are so glad to be back. Vacation was necessary and needed. We're back. And you can tell we're looking good and we're all refreshed. Look at DD. She is just as serious as she was when she left. You know what I mean? So glad to be back. Glad to be back. Let's get right on into this because I am very, very, very excited to have this guest here. And I'll just give you just a brief history and he's going to give you more as we talk for the next hour. We have been friends for quite some time. He'll tell you how we met and how that went on and what have you. But I've always consulted him for things that were concerning with the with gospel, with his church, with his origin, with his group, the Dixie Hummingbirds. Excuse me, Dixie Hummingbirds. And we're going to go into the book situation. We're going to go into all of that a little bit. First of all, let me start off by saying good evening to you, Reverend Joe Williams. How are you, my friend?
I'm fine. Actually, because that music, your theme, you came on with that theme, that'll make a cripple man dance.
Well, listen, I know if there's anybody that have performed these type of miracles, you have been it. You know what I mean? So you've done it.
Funny as you said though, I have seen people get out of wheelchairs and start to shout. I've seen that happen several times.
Yes. Gospel will make you do that. Gospel, I'll say music will make you do that. Amen. Gospel is the driving force. You know what I mean?
You know, when I was in Paris singing on the first world gospel concert ever in Nice, France, a lady came by in a limousine after everything was over. She said, I don't understand nothing you were saying, but I feel it right in my stomach.
Okay.
You got to know the language that music, that feeling will get to you.
Yes, it will. Yes, it most certainly will. There's no question about that. No question. Well, listen, I am glad to have you here. Glad to have you with us and what have you. Let's jump on in this because there is a lot of questions. And we also have joining us Miss Lynn Peterson. Miss Lynn Peterson, and I'll tell you guys, she's a young lady. Yeah, she's here, Rev. She's here. She's a young lady who wrote this book that we're talking about, Flying with the Birds. And between her and Rev, they'll tell you how we all met and how we all got started and this, that, and the other. Okay. Rev, let me start off by asking you this. I want to ask you sort of a tough question, not necessarily how we get started. We'll come back to that later. Back in the day when you were doing the gospel, when they had sort of like what they call the battle of the groups, which group was really, really tough for you guys to go up against? You were the Dixie Hummingbirds. You had the professional people like the Soul Stirrers. You had the Nightingales. Who were the tough group to go up against in a gospel concert?
Joke and Travel was one of them. Lou Rawls was with that group. Joke and Travel out of California. They could do it. You couldn't mess with the Soul Stirrers for so long. When Sam Cooke got with them, he could shout benches. I mean, look, the women would fall out. That's why they got him, the young, good-looking guy. But I think all those gospel groups, to be a gospel singer back in that time, that was the golden age of gospel, era of gospel.
Right. Okay.
And if you sing, matter of fact, if you went to Chicago and couldn't sing, you might be going back home. No name groups would send you back.
Okay.
They have a lot of blues singers that come out of Chicago because they left Mississippi. Either came to Chicago. Why the Birds came to Philadelphia because Mr. Davis, the manager of the group, said we can work out of Philadelphia.
Okay.
Did somebody say something?
No, go ahead, Rev.
Oh, yeah, he said we can go to New York, live in Philadelphia. And the rules was in gospel at that time, you couldn't book a group but 50 miles from the night. Like we would do New York on Sundays. On Sunday, and do the Met on Monday nights, because the road was 50 miles or more away. Anything
Okay.
less than 50 miles would Mr. Davis wouldn't book. Matter of fact, Mr. Davis would never sign a contract with none of them promoters. All on a handshake. He was strict with the gentleman's word. What is in the book that somebody else wrote about the Dixie Humming birds, like Miss Lynn said, the book she wrote wasn't about the birds, it was about me. But he walked all along one time just to keep his word, because the car broke down and he was still working, as we were too. When I was with the Sons of the Birds, he wanted to be on his job at the next Monday morning. So he walked all night to keep his word. So that's some old Southern guys were gentlemen, man. If they gave you a handshake, you could take it to the bank.
Okay. That shows you two things: how strong gospel was, and also back in the day, how people meant their words and what their word meant to them.
Amen.
Yeah. All right, I'm going back out and let the group come on in here. Professor, I know we can see your picture, and you're having some difficulties. Why don't you start off with introducing and your question?
Hi, Reverend Joe. My name is Sharon, but they call me Professor.
All right.
I'm glad that you're with us today, this evening.
I am too. I'm glad to be anywhere now.
I know that's right. But I do want to ask, what do you think the life was like touring during the civil rights era?
Right there, I'm glad you asked that question, because Bob Manvich, who's another friend of mine out of Chicago, he had said once, gospel groups, gospel music was the fuel, the gas that kept the civil rights buses running. Matter of fact, Dr. King loved me, Hillary Jackson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gospel music, any preacher now, well, I don't know about now, but years ago, any preacher, I don't care how good he could preach, somebody had to sing. Boy, got Aretha Franklin her father had a little 14-year-old girl. Aretha was 14 too. They would tell out down before the preacher even got up, because Franklin couldn't many people living to that preacher him. But that's all part of the singing. Now, matter of fact, I just thought about something with this book, Mr. Hackett. Dr. Lynn Peterson narrates what's in the book, and she make the characters come alive. It was nothing for me to do was try to sign some books, because she could.
She's a tremendous talent. She is. She's a tremendous talent.
I don't think Miss Lynn is old enough, but years ago, when only thing you had in your house was the radio to listen to The Shadow, Amos and Annie. But your mind, you could see them people in your mind. You could see them.
Yeah.
But matter of fact, with two white guys doing Amos and Annie, when they started having radio and TV came around, they had to get two black guys to do Amos and Annie. But for a long time, with two white guys doing it. I don't know if y'all know that. Anybody, y'all don't know that?
That's
Yeah. That's good information. Good question there, Professor. Drew, come on in with yours, if you would, please.
Hey, Reverend Williams, this is Andrew. Thank you for joining our podcast. I want you mentioned Sons of the Birds. Now, could you explain a little more about Sons of the Birds? Was that an offshoot of the Dixie Hummingbirds that you were a part of? How did that come apart?
It was far from being an offshoot. I tell you what happened. We had 800 names before we even thought about some Sons of the Birds. The variety is, the Christian is. What happened was, I'm 14 years old at the time, and I heard a man tell another man, said, "You know, you and your son look alike, father, son." So I had a lot of nerve coming up, so I just walked up to the guy and said, "May I ask you something, man? Who's your father?" He said, "Oh, my father, Mr. James Davis of the Dixie Hummingbirds, manager of the Dixie Hummingbirds." I said, "Well, can you sing? Because I like to have you to sing in my group." Matter of fact, I hate to say my group. Because when I come out of the Marine Corps and try to get out together, I just said my group, a group is still a group. Because at one time, Mr. Tucker tried to ask Mr. Davis, said, why don't we change the name to our Tucker and the Dixie Humming Bird? Mr. Davis said, no, this is a group. Period. Yeah. Mr. Davis said, yeah, my son, I said, well, can he sing with us? He said, to tell you the truth, I don't know if my son can sing or not. I hear him walking around the house hollering, but I don't know if he can sing. So I met Mr. Davis, and he told James Davis, said, okay, they seem like a nice boy. Now we're 14 years old. They seem like a nice boy to sing with them. So we and Bobo's father was the bass singer for the Dixie Humming Birds. We all went to junior high school together. He's the first one to ask me, man, you want to sing some gospel? I said, I don't know nothing about no gospel. I used to travel with a white group, the Presbyterian Church of the Air with children. I was the one that brought with them for a long time. And, you couldn't move, you couldn't do nothing. Just put your hands in front of you, cup your hands in front of you. So I was a soloist. And I guess that's the refined way of saying that jumping around and stuff was too African for the white folks.
Right.
You couldn't even work if you were sweating. You couldn't even, well, I remember the Weekends over Jordan. They sang in one spot, and that's it. You couldn't move it, do anything else. So we did pretty good until Louise Williams. He said, y'all guys, y'all sing rock and roll. Well, that's not told you before. She remember the rock and roll stuff. So she told the people, we were always at the Philadelphia Hotel with the Dixie Humming Birds. She said, these guys got a name but the right ear. No, their fathers are with the Dixie Humming Birds. They're sons of the birds. So I went to Mr. Davis. I said, Mr. Davis, can we use it? Sons of the Dixie Humming Birds? He said, no way. I don't want you using it. Because Dixie, you and your group will show up someplace. They'll be looking for us, and it'll be y'all. He said, well, I'll compromise. I'll just let you use the name Birds, Sons of the Birds, which was true. At one time, we had 4 different sons in the group that fathers sang with the Dixie Humming Birds. Now, it should have been about right. It should have been the biggest thing that ever happened to gospel, because not only to that, we go somewhere and sing. People would say, you know what? I was looking for some little kids. And I didn't know y'all guys were grown. Well, we were 20, 21. I didn't think y'all could really sing. Now, we're in Alabama somewhere. Tell me they didn't know we could really sing. And they would say, well, the next time y'all come here, we'll get a crowd. The next time. What about that?
What about this time?
That's how that happened. Yeah. We didn't want to use that name, Sons of the Birds, but the people said, yeah, man, you look just like your father. You look, so it was a great thing that could happen, but we were telling the truth. Some of the guys could agree.
Good question, Drew. Good question. Restful, come on in, babe.
Yes. Hi, Reverend Williams. My name is Shirley. They call me Restful Spirit. Yes. You've been involved in various projects, including the Philadelphia premiere, how they got over, which detailed your time as a member of the Dixie Hummingbirds. What do getting over and making it through means to you personally?
Perseverance, faith, and perseverance. Like I said, I didn't even get paid to let me sing. See, you got to be I guess you'd have to be a gospel to know what I'm saying. The feeling you would get, I've seen people get up out the chair, run around a big auditorium like in Chicago, the McCormick Place, whatever it may be, and can't stop because that music's so powerful. The society we live in, they don't want you to know how powerful this music is. So that's why they water it down with these Mickey Mouse words on the tune. That lady on television said her singer can't even sing, but she went into the studio. They have ways of pulling you up and making you, if you're flat, they can make you sound in tune. It's good and all that stuff, but what happened when you got to show up somewhere in person? You can't back it up. You got all the instruments, covering you up, making you sound good. But you got to be able to sell what you're doing. That's the word we use in gospel. You got to sell the song. You just, when we recorded for a while.
Good question. Good question, Russell. Good question. Dr. Peterson, are you available? Can you hear me?
One sounds like they're in Mickey Mouse mode. I'm getting all right, I'm being unmuted. Yeah.
Can you hear me, dear?
I can hear. I can hear you. It just
I don't
seems
know what
like
happened to your visual. You was here a minute ago. But welcome to the Friday Night Live podcast with Music Lovers Ltd. I asked to get you on here, and I'm sorry I didn't call you myself. For some reason, I didn't have a number. But anyway, I asked to get you on here because you are the writer of this book that we're talking about, Flying with the Birds. Would you just give a little synopsis of one, how we met, two, and how the three of us got together, and four, on this book?
Okay, so one, why can't I remember the name? What was the hotel? It was the hotel, the Hilton, across the street from Children's Hospital. Do you remember the name of that little club?
Club Ideas.
I nothing came. The other day, it's been 30 years, right? But anyway, Allie Hackett was the DJ. And I went with my girlfriend to this club on Saturday nights, and she had some friends come in from out of town. And she says, I want to take my friends out. Where do you want to go? And I said, there's only one place I would go on a Saturday night. Allie Hackett plays the oldies. And I said, that's where we're going to go over to the hotel. And Club Ideas. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I lost it that quick. But anyway, that night we went into the club. And they went and sat at the bar. I said, I don't sit at the bar. I came here to dance. So I said, no, don't save me a seat. I'm going to listen to the music, and I'm going to stand right here on the dance floor. And I did. The person I was standing next to is upstairs now. That night, I was standing next to him. I said, no, I'm going to stand right here with this nice young man. And I turned to him, and Allie played something. I said, can you bop? And he looked at me. I was like, you look like you're too young to bop. And he says, I can bop. I said, oh, really? So he's been, and that was in 1993. And I haven't bopped with anybody else since then. So we've been an item because of Allie Hackett and his music. And he asked me whether or not he could call me when he got home from church on Sunday. He said, can I call you after church on Sunday? And I said, when I come from church or when you come from church? He said, when I come from church. Well, as it turns out, the church that he was going to, the pastor there was from Greensville, South Carolina. And I couldn't believe that. I said, I met a guy who actually goes to church on a Sunday. I mean, my goodness. Yeah. But anyway, we decided 2 years later to get married. And I said, I didn't want it to be my church, your church, it'll be our church, but we're going to find a pastor to marry us because it's the second time for both of us. So unbelievably, there are a lot of pastors who would not marry us. So a friend of mine who I was selling Mary Kay product, her husband, who is also a pastor, he says, I have someone for you. I want you to meet Reverend Joe. I was like, okay, great. I said, so as soon as we met him, Wayne remembers questions that obviously Reverend Joe had asked him about, like, oh, you guys, you don't have to take all those classes and stuff. This is the second time for each of you. And I was like, yeah, this is our second time around. And we laughed about that. And I remember we were talking about the vows, and I had to ask Reverend Joe, I said, listen, when you get to that part, obey, take that out of there. Okay. I'm not going to respond to that. If you say obey, I'm not going to respond. Okay. So, and he did. And we've been laughing about it ever since because that's all I do anymore is obey. And it was crazy because that was like last year, Ollie, that everybody, we were at Reverend Joe's church. Sydney was in town. So she had come pretty much to shut everything down because I guess she said enough is enough already. Yeah, but Allie Hackett was there, Garnet Mims was there. Yeah. My girlfriend, who was the one who had me go to Club Ideas that night, she was there. I said, this is crazy. I said, here's Ollie. Here's the gal who invited me to come go with her, who was bringing her cousins in from Wisconsin or something. And there's Hazel. Hazel is sitting in the crowd. I was like, wait, this is all crazy. And then Reverend Joe is the one who ended up marrying us.
Right.
So it's kind of like, you got to be careful who you talk to or about. You never know who's going to be in the audience. Yeah. And it was just surreal. It was surreal. But I will tell you about the book is that I hadn't planned to write a book. I had planned to write down some of the quotes, and put them in a booklet form. And we were celebrating our 30th anniversary, September this year. We already did. And I said, I wanted to give Reverend Joe something, but I didn't want to give him he don't need any more socks. He don't need another shirt because I'd never see it. He almost always has a collar on, except for today. This is kind of cool. I get to see the neck.
Right. This is a rarity here. A rarity.
It is. Yeah. And I just said, you know what? When you listen to Reverend Joe's sermons, you prepare yourself because what you're going to hear a lot of are he does one-liners like you would not believe. Orders are handed down, not up. Yeah. Did you know that you want to know how to get to heaven? Make a right and go straight.
Right.
You can't make sense out of nonsense. So he's rattling these things off. I'm writing them down, but I had been writing them down for years. So wherever he was speaking, if it wasn't at his church, I would go to a visiting church, and he's giving these one-liners. People are laughing and falling out the pew. Yeah. And I said, how does he memorize all these quotes like it? So I wrote them down. I asked some of the other members of the church if they had any, and I was just going to put these quotes together in a couple of pictures. As a little commemorative booklet that anybody who wanted to get the booklet, I would just make sure it was to them for free. Well, as I went to get it book published, I couldn't find a publisher to do the printing for me. I said, I got a membership with KDP because I had planned to write ebooks and stuff anyway. And so I said, let me contact KDP. And they said, okay, well, this is what you want. We can give you a saddle stitch. Long story short, as it turns out, they started reading the quotes. And they liked the quotes. And they said, just can't make sense out of nonsense, Lynn. I was like, oh, Lord. I said, these are really good. They felt about the quotes the way I did. Then they said to me, Lynn, tell us about Reverend Joe. And because I had done an audio for YouTube with Reverend Joe in April, and this is in May, in April, a lot of the story that is in the book had come from an audio recording, which, by the way, it's an hour. I think we got it done an hour and 30 minutes on YouTube. And I was able to extrapolate, although I had heard many of the stories over the years, but I had a little bit more in depth because it was just him and Miss Laverne. And I was able to give them some stories. Like Reverend Joe went into the Marines at 17 years old. And I guess when I was asking him questions, I was probing, trying to find out, why is he in the service at 17? Even though I was married at 17, I have 2 children from that marriage. But I was wondering, why would somebody want to go into the service at the time? So Reverend Joe started telling the story. And I was asking him about Miss Laverne. And by the way, one of his parents had to sign for him to go into the Marines. It wasn't like he just walk up to the recruiting office.
Right. Different times.
Different times back then. And he was actually running away, not to, but away from an abusive situation at home. But he said that day in April 27th, I think we did that, Reverend Joe, was, he said, I never told anybody that story before. Nobody ever knew why. And why he decided to tell me as I'm asking questions about, because I wanted to know about his life. I wanted to know about what happened when you were 5. And basically what I wanted to do was to tell a story that way. But before all of that, these folks at KDP kept insisting, you have to tell his story. I said, I don't have time to write a book. And they said, yeah, you do. And if you don't, you give us the money and we'll write it for you. Just tell us, give us all the parts. I said, no, it's not going to happen like that. So long story short, they gave me 30 days to write this book. They said you have till June 30th to finish the book. Well, I had already planned a 7-day vacation for my husband and I to go to Las Vegas and go to Henderson. I have a girlfriend there. I said we had never taken a 7-day trip. When's that start? June 1st. So the first 7 days of June, I only had till June 30th. We're in Las Vegas. I have the laptop. He's asking me, are we going to go to dinner or what? He's laying on the bed, and so he went down to the hotel, and he's like, what are you doing? I said, they want the first and second chapter by Tuesday. That's what I'm doing. What are you doing? I'm waiting down here waiting to go to dinner. So we spent the entire first 7 days with me trying to, and I would give them first and second chapter and say, okay, that's good enough. They said, Lynn, we need 3 and 4 by next Monday. I was like, but anyway, long story short, I did get the book done in 30 days by June 30th. And still an enigma to me. I still don't understand how all this happened. But by June, that was June 30th. By July 8th, and I thought KDP had something to do with this. By July 8th, I'm looking at Amazon trying to find the book. And I plugged it in, and it comes up, Amazon, hottest new release. Number 1, hottest new release, Flying with the Birds.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome.
And that's what I said. I still say that's awesome. I still sit here. I just, if it is telling, I had to run to the bank and set up an account and all this stuff. But anyway, and I told him, for the first 3 weeks of July, I just sat staring at the screen going, I wonder if KDP had anything to do with this. And I'm calling them. They're my marketing team. I said, guys, they're like, Lynn, did you see it? I said, yeah, I saw it.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm thinking they had something to do with it. They said, no, we can't do that. We can market your book and we can set it up and publish an all free, but we had not. That's Amazon. So I'm quite taken aback by it, as I am with the gentleman up there who I've spent many hours of laughter and just hanging out with him. He keeps going, I don't know why she keeps showing up. I never see her writing anything down, but I am. I was always writing stuff down. But I'm glad to be a part of the Williams family, such as it is with Sydney and Miss Laverne, wherever she is. Hey. But it's been very interesting they're like my aunt and uncle who I hung out with until I couldn't hang out with them anymore. They decided to, as Rev Joe said, they got to call. They got to call back to the office. Yeah, he said the home office called, they asked them to return. So they both have returned to the home office, and I have the pleasure of hanging out. They have become my replacement it was my grandfather's brother and his wife, my Aunt Florence and Uncle Bill.
Well, let me cut across you there, and I listen. We need 4 hours to go over. We definitely need it. But I want to say something. I'm going to use one of the quotes, and I'm not sure. I think it is in the book, but if it isn't, you've heard it before anyway. What prompted this whole, not prompted, but what put this situation the way it is? Reverend Williams will say all the time, "If you won't, God will."
That's right. Yes. In fact, that one's in there. When you can, God can, and when you won't, God will. And
that's right.
That was the quote he ends up always ends with that.
Right. That's why the book is number 1, and we're going to try to continue to keep it with number 1. Listen, Lynn, don't go anywhere, but I thank you so much for joining us. You've given us some great information, and I see the the expressions of the guys on the team. They really like what you got to say. I want to get more into Rev because obviously that's what this is all about. Who hasn't had a chance? Everybody's had a chance so far. Professor, come on in with another question if you got one, please.
All righty. As the last living member of the classic group, the Dixie Hummingbirds, what responsibility do you feel for preserving the legacy of the Dixie Hummingbirds?
That's a good question. Good question. I think the Lord is keeping me here to make sure the story is told right. There's a book that came out. Happened to be a white guy who wrote the book, a professor from the college. But half the stuff he said wasn't even true that you talking about. But see, when a person that's been there, a person that's got it can't talk about somebody that's been here. I was with them all night long in the car. I'm listening to these same stories that Miss Glenn is talking about. Some of them I remembered, some of them I didn't. But the ones I remembered, when they were coming in my mind, I was said, and I guess it sounded pretty good because people said, "Man, you're a funny guy." But I didn't want to be funny. I was telling what they would say. Now they tell a story about the bishop up in New York. A lady asked the bishop, said, "Bishop, I want you to preach my daughter's funeral." And the bishop said, "Miss, you can't embarrass me like that." I said, "Yes, sir." She said, "Well, I got $1,000 I was going to give you." He said, "Why didn't you tell me that dog was saved?" He should tell me. You should have told me that at the beginning. So, that's funny. Matter of fact, one of the highlights of being with the Dixie Humming Birds, they kept me laughing all the time. There was a funny group of jovial guys. If you deal with a person that never smiles, you're a dangerous person. You've got to get loose enough to smile sometime. Something got to make them happy. And that's what the happiest days of my life was just traveling with them. That word came to me about flying with them. One day I just said, "Man, the Lord has blessed me to be flying with the birds." I had no idea about a book. I even sang it with them because I traveled with them for years, just selling pictures and singing with my group, because we opened it up. I guess the show business, they call it opening for the main group. But the Sons of the Bird would open up for the Dixie Humming Birds. We traveled along. But it was the people that didn't want to believe it. And I told Mr. Davis, "I think we better go our separate ways because these folks don't believe we're the Sons. And they want you to show them the license and prove it to me." I was little boys to show up. I didn't know y'all were grown and could sing. So that's our fault. That should have been the greatest thing that ever happened to gospel music. The Father. That's it.
All right. Good question there, Professor. Good question.
Thanks,
Rev. Restful, come on in, babe.
Yes. Reverend Williams, how did your song Christian Automobile come about?
A lady wrote that song, some of it, and Mr. R. Tucker Jr., Mr. Tucker's son, helped him put the words to it. But see, what happened when we were traveling, matter of fact, we were at the same hotel where Dr. King stayed and where he got killed.
Okay.
All the gospel groups and entertainers would stay. I remember it like it was yesterday. Pop Staples told Mr. Davis, say, "Davis, I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm going to start singing message music with my group." Mavis Davis, all I made that record, Respect Yourself.
Yeah.
That's all that came about. He said, this gospel singing, straight singing, and getting the people don't want to catch on to it. Well, we'll start singing. If you can, told Dr. King, if you can preach that what you're doing, we could sing exactly what you're singing. That's how that all came about. That's how that all.
Wow. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Good question there, Russell. Good question. Drew, come on in.
Yes, Reverend Joe. We've heard various stories about legendary groups when they toured down south, being humiliated and stopped and degraded and everything. An interesting story I read about your group was that you encountered some motorcycle cops down there, and they actually gave you a police escort to your next gig. Can you pick it up from there? I think that's a very interesting story.
It is, and so see, actually what happened was I always had jobs selling stuff. So for some unknown reason, I did the talking for the group. I could tell just as good if a white person had stopped the car or a black person, because the way that whoever was driving would be talking. I said, "Man, they're scared to lift these white folks down there." So I was from North Philly. It never really dawned on me about being black and scared. I don't know. Maybe that's saved my life. But we pulled into a gas station. 2 motorcycle cops were at the gas station. So I got out the car because I was driving the time. We were in Alabama. I got the car. I say, "Pardon me, sir. Were you in the Marine Corps?" No, I'm a former Marine. He looked at me and said, "No." I said, "Well, you squared away. You look good in your uniform." He said, "What can I do for you?" I said, "We're looking for the high school. We're going to be singing here tonight. Get back in your car." I said, "Oh, Lord, that's it for us." I don't know what they're going to do. Get back in your car. Before we knew it, those two motorcycle cops was escorting us. I guess 4 or 5 miles had to be to get to the school. Now, when we got to the school, the Dixie Humming Birds, because I'm with the Sons now, the Dixie Humming Birds was already there. So Mr. Bobo told me, Mr. Bobo, the bass singer, said, "Joe, if I hadn't seen that with my own eyes, nobody in the world could make me believe an Alabama motorcycle cops would escort you nowhere." So that night at the program, I actually was talking for the group like I said before. So before we got to start to sing, I said, "Oh, by the way, give the motorcycle cops a hand." And nobody clapped.
I think that's just an amazing story. I mean, they never humiliated you. They just gave you the escort, and out of respect for being fellow Marines, they gave you that respect. Wow, that's an amazing story.
Awesome. That's really, really awesome. That's awesome.
Mr. Davis, Joe, you got to remember, in Alabama, they kill black men for lunch. They do anything in Alabama. You understand? But maybe how the Lord will take care of little baby drunks and fools.
Oh, yeah.
Because I never had that fear. I look back on it now and say, "Oh, Lord." But being from Philly, they having heart. They call it having a lot of heart. I had the heart to say, and I think God protected us because He knew we didn't know what we were doing. None of us was from the South. Dixie Humming South. All of us are from North Philadelphia. Anything goes. We could make believe was part of my life. I lived under a plug at the corner of Cleveland Street and make believe I live in Lang City.
All right.
Good question, Drew. Good question. Very good. Very good question. And Rev, thank you for sharing that. We'd like to say good evening to Roger Weaver and Constance Moore and some of the gang that's out there. Check it out, the show. Thank you so much for doing that. For those of you that don't know, or I don't know why you don't, we got the legendary Rev Joe Williams with us, the last surviving member of the world famous Dixie Humming Birds. We also have the young lady, Miss Lynn Peterson, Dr. Lynn Peterson, who is the writer of this particular book called Flying with the Birds. Let me just hold it up so maybe you guys can see it. There it is right there. I'm trying to hold it so the glare won't, but it's, there we go. There we go. Yeah, I have my copy that Reverend Williams signed and what have you. Very, very interesting. Some very, very nice points. Obviously, in 1 hour, we can't hit every point. Rev, I want to bring up something that maybe is not too popular, but because of the fact of the time that you came through singing gospel music, I want to relate this. And you know this story because I've talked to you about it before. Ladies and gentlemen, in the movie, The 5 Heartbeats, you saw the part where they were driving on a back road in the country, in the Chitlin Circuit. They were stopped by the police. They were asked to get out of the car, and they were asked to sing. I'm talking about the movie. Now, I know of one situation where this happened in real life. Solomon Burke told me that him, Sam Cooke, Joe Tex, and them guys were traveling from one place to another, which Rev can attest to, and they had to get out and perform. Rev, did this ever happen to you, and where did it happen?
All the time. Matter of fact, you didn't have to be in the South for it to happen. I remember one night we pulled in at about 2 o'clock in the morning. 29th and Lehigh, the cops stopped us. "What are you boys doing in this car?" I said, "We're singers." The only thing that saved us, I opened the trunk, and with the placard, I don't know if y'all know what a placard is. The placard is what they put around on poles and they advertise programs coming to town. I happen to have an old placard in the trunk, and I showed them that, "Oh, your guys really are singers." I said, "Yes, sir. Sing a song." And that's the only thing. The only thing saved us. Wow. Sing a song. Like, get out of here. The Nightingales one time, they got stopped by the police, and they said, "What you ladies out here in the nighttime?" Told the other motorcycle policeman, take their watches from them. Now, what happened? They weren't ladies. It was the Nightingales were processing, and the policemen thought they were ladies, and that's what the only thing saved them. Man, so take them watches off just to watch it from. Most times, if we ran out of gas, almost getting ready to run out of gas, and go to a gas station that they wouldn't serve us, but always the owner's wife would come out and tell them, "Oh, give them boys some gas." Then they cut the lights back on and give us some gas. We got saved like that a lot of times. So, other thing about that, I tell you, we wanted to sing in Las Vegas because the award singers had gone to Las Vegas and started singing. And Irv Naham used to book all the acts at the Uptown Theater. He said, no, Joe, I'm on a level with you. The old club owners wouldn't want y'all 5 young, handsome young guys around their wives. I can't book you. That's the true story. We had in front. Plus, being a black male and all of us young, they couldn't take that. Matter of fact, the book is in my book. When I worked for Pepsi-Cola, a white truck driver told me, because I was a supervisor, he said, "Hey, man, do me a favor, take that suit off. I'd feel much better." So we've come to a whole lot. Matter of fact, I should start telling some of the stories that we went through with to get where we are, because the younger folks don't know nothing about none of what we're talking about.
That's true. Yeah, very true. You and I talk about this a lot of times. Yeah. If they have no inkling as to what went on, they're not going to know too much of anything. I agree. Let me see if Miss Peterson, because we got about 10 minutes here. I think I've got Miss Peterson. Is there something you want to say in like closing, if you will? Can you hear me? I guess you can.
You know what, Mr. Ali Hackett?
Yes, sir.
That book, and my hat's off to Dr. Peterson. We didn't have no gossip in that book about who was going with who, all other stuff. They do that sometimes in books, but everything she wrote about was true. It makes a difference. And I think our young people now need to know the truth. It was somebody we didn't get paid. I remember one night at the Met, so they came into the box office and get paid, and the lady at the box office, Ronnie Williams was the man who booked all that. Ronnie Williams said he had to go back to Newark to check the store closed. He had put back to Newark with all that.
Well, I've seen that firsthand in the rock and roll side. You know what I mean? I wasn't as immersed in the gospel aspect as you were, but I've seen that firsthand in the rock and roll side. Right here in Philadelphia. Miss Peterson, I'm so glad that you got back with us. Is something you want to say in closing, please? We're getting ready to go out.
I was going to ask if the folks who are on the panel, if everyone is from Philadelphia, from across throughout the country. And the reason why I said that is because when I wrote the book, I basically was trying to take Reverend Joe off the stage. Where we see, in fact, that's one of the chapters, one of the very first chapters, is that oftentimes we see the fruit, but we don't see the root. And the whole point of the book was there's a lot of information on the internet about the Dixie hummingbirds. But what I wanted to focus on was the last remaining member of the Dixie Hummingbirds, his trials, his tribulations, his triumphs, because there's all of that is in the book. So the first one is from the fruit of the root. So we're looking at what happened with him. I don't know if you all know, but Miss Laverne, Mrs. Joseph Williams, she grew up on a coal mining town in Pennsylvania. And for the first 18 years of her life, she had never ate food that her mother or her sisters had not prepared. And her father worked in the coal mine. And then she comes to Philadelphia. She meets Reverend Joe. One of Reverend Joe's, his father, one of the many jobs that he had was as a coal delivery man. Miss Laverne talked about how her father would be so cold in the coal mine, he would come home, his overalls were frozen to his body. Reverend Joe, if you all know about Philadelphia at all, Reverend Joe's father, and he told a totally different story. They didn't even tell it at the same time in the same room. He talked about how his father delivered the coal. And a lot of the streets in South Philadelphia and North Philadelphia were narrow streets.
Yep.
And the truck couldn't get down the street. So his father had to carry the coal from the truck to the house. Mm-hmm. And he would come home and his clothes were frozen to his body as well. And I'm like, how eerie is that? That here he marries someone who tells the same story at a totally different time. There's another chapter, and I called that chapter The Coal Miner's Daughter. And I did steal chapters from other books that I had read over the years. There's a chapter in there called Pride and Prejudice. And there was some pride of Reverend Joe being in the Marines. He was beaten terribly during his first couple of weeks there as a brand new soldier. He was beaten so badly, he was placed in the infirmary for almost 3 weeks.
Right.
From being beat by the drill sergeants. This is kids, he's 17. He just got there. He's excited about being away from home. But his infraction for that beating, he didn't make his bed fast enough. Did he get angry? Did he decide, I'm leaving? I'm not putting up with this? He didn't do any of those things. He stayed. That was at Paris Island. When he got to Camp Lejeune, I guess they saw something in him too. That thing that they saw is that perseverance, that personality that he has. He became an honor guard soldier. He was one of only 3 black men in Hawaii in his platoon who actually were part of the Presidential Honor Guard.
Yep.
I wouldn't have known that if I had not asked some questions. Okay, so that's the person he is. And I'll just fast forward a little bit. In Philadelphia in the early 60s, I know my mom had said to me, don't bring tasty cake in this house. And we love tasty cake. It was the best. And she says, and no Pepsi either. And she loved Pepsi. Oh my, I was like, this is going to be horrible in here. But they had not hired any black drivers. She says, don't bring it in here until they start hiring black truck drivers. When Pepsi Cola finally, we boycotted. That was the years that we boycotted. So we boycotted evidently long enough for Pepsi Cola to decide to hire black drivers. Mm-hmm. Well, they only hired 4. Here again, Reverend Joe is one of the 4 that got hired at Pepsi Cola. Right. So those are the types of stories that I talked about, the pride of being with Pepsi Cola, but there's also the prejudice of being with a corporate America. Yeah. We would share stories. I worked for Hershey Foods as a sales rep, and so I understood when he was saying about the prejudice of people saying, whatever you got, I ain't buying none of that. And he would respond, well, maybe today would be different.
Right.
And he didn't let the assault of other people's stupidity and their own prejudices stand in the way of him keeping that job. There's more to the story on that one, because even as great a guy as he is, there were some factions in Pepsi Cola who didn't like the outgoing personality, I'll put it that way, that Reverend Joe had. But that too is in the book about how he got the job, he lost the job. He had to go see if the name Cecil Moore means anything to you. Yep. I was trying to give historical references as to what was going on during the time that he was hired by Pepsi Cola. But he was hired by Pepsi Cola. He lost the job. He went to talk with Cecil B. Moore, who said to him, if you're ready to fight, sit down. If not, get the hell out of my office, which sounds just like Cecil Moore. Reverend Joe, I won't even say these were acquaintances. Reverend Joe was working with Cecil Moore. He actually became his driver to take him around Philadelphia. Leon Sullivan is mentioned in the book because Reverend Joe actually worked for OIC at one point. But you'll have to read the rest of the story on that. Did he always want to be a minister? No, he always wanted to be a singer. Right. How did he become a minister? If you're from Philadelphia or know anybody from Philadelphia, you may have heard the name Matty Humphrey.
Yes.
Louise
Yes.
Williams Bishop.
Yeah.
Those are names that most Philadelphians know because Louise Williams Bishop was instrumental in kind of creating a path of sorts. Reverend Joe kind of always knew, I think, that the singing was one thing, but God had another calling for him.
Absolutely.
But while he was singing, he was trying to do both. He's working Pepsi Cola. He's going to New York every day. There's a lot going on. But his path into pastoralship came from Louise Williams Bishop saying to Reverend Joe one day while he was at the radio station, "You need to meet this woman." And he goes, "What woman?" He said, "That one on the other side of the glass." And that was Maddie Humphrey, who said, "Joe Williams, what are you doing tonight?" He says, "I'm trying to go home," a little bit. He says, "No, you're going to the prison with me tonight." And that encounter and that night at the prison, she said, "I got some guys here. They want a quartet. And they're not doing so good. You go in there and teach them everything you know." And he did. And the love that he felt from the inmates at Graterford Prison was the stepping stone into his 10 years. It was 10 years at the time. Then I think he had just gotten out. But that began this long journey that he's had, pastoring a church, praying for people, making sure people had food and shoes and clothes, and inmates who came home who had no place else to go. And he opened his doors to them. They didn't have a church to go to, but he opened his church up to them. And when people told him, "Don't bring those prisoners, those inmates, don't let them come into your church because people will stop coming." Well, the church was full of them. and people did not stop coming. So
Let me cut in for just a second.
I was talking with my neighbor the other day. I look out my office window and see her kitchen, and I was just sending her a little hand thing, like a hi. And she said, "I just got finished reading the book." And I said, "Oh, great." I said, "That's good." I said, "Please go to Amazon and leave a review."
Absolutely.
And she said she felt like, she said, as I'm reading the book, I feel like I'm standing in the sidelines watching his life.
There you go.
Because there's twists and turns
that it was very
you need to see about. You see it within the book.
And that just proves that it was very
I see you, Allie. I see your mouth moving, but I don't hear you.
Okay, I'm saying we're running out of time, my dear. It proves that it was very well written. That's what it proves. And I want to ask.
I'm not getting any audio.
Oh wow!
No,
I don't know what happened.
I don't hear anything.
Okay, let's give her a nice round of applause for writing the book and being in Reverend Joe Williams' life. I thank you for that. We're gonna do our goodbyes. Professor, I'm gonna start off with you right now.
Reverend Joe, thank you so much for joining us. It has definitely been a pleasure, and also to learn that you were, in some ways, a former neighbor.
That's something, yes. And I'm still from North Philly.
Yes, I've been there from 1962 to 2009.
Amen.
Thank you, Professor. Russell, come on in.
Yes, Reverend Williams, thank you again for sharing your journey with us. It's clear that your life has touched countless people throughout your music and your ministry as well. And I'm grateful that you have taken the time to reflect that with us. So thank you again.
Thank you. You know, reason why I started going to the penitentiary, there was only guys who would listen to me. The real church folks don't want to hear. We don't need to hear all that stuff. You talk about that black stuff. I heard ministers say, "Get off that black stuff, you beg." And I want to say, we've got to make sure our young people know not only was it down south, a lot of that stuff happened right up here in North Philadelphia. The Dixie Hummingbirds, the guitar player, Mr. Howard, said his father delivered coal to Girard College. He couldn't go into the college. He had to get out of his truck. A white guy had to come in and get in the truck, take the truck into the college, deliver the coal, bring the truck back in and get back in. How stupid was that? But that happened right here. So we need to make sure our young people know what some of the people had to go through with.
Right.
Right. And my father.
Right. And my brother also drove for Pepsi.
Is that right?
Yes. He drove for Pepsi. Yeah. And I remember the coal truck used to come to my sister's house. They had the window, the little basement window, and they come down, and all that coal be down in the basement. Yeah.
Stop being ashamed of what we came through. We ought to say, thank God we made it through. And
Amen.
thank you, Mr. Holly, for having us today. This is great. I think you're going to be something one day to stick to it.
Thank you, Rev. Drew, did you do your goodbyes, Drew?
No, not yet. Reverend Joe, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much, Reverend Joe, for joining us. I met you a couple times through Ollie when we visited your church, and I look forward to visiting there again. Quickly, is your book available at the church?
Funny you would ask that. Come on, Miss Lynn, tell them how to get it.
Oh, I know it's available on Amazon.
Yeah. Well, he's no longer at the church, Drew. He's no longer at the church, so you'd have to go through Amazon to get it.
Book signing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But thank you for joining us, Brother Joe.
If there's another book signing, Drew, I'll let you know where it is. If there's another book signing.
Okay.
And we're glad to have you to do that. So we got to pray for each other. The fight is not over with.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you guys for joining us tonight on our Friday Night Live podcast. Let me give you the rundown for the week. We as I said earlier, we need more time because we haven't even begun to scratch the surface with Reverend Joe. I definitely wanted to get Miss Peterson on because she's the author of the book, and you know that story coincides with what we're doing. But we need more. We'd like to get more time with Reverend Joe because he is an awesome individual. And I'm talking about it as a human person, but then you go into the gospel side where he was a preacher, you go into the singing side. There's so many different facets for this young man, for this gentleman here, and all of them are good. All of them are good. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, we want to thank you for hanging out with us for the past hour. Next, what are we doing? Let me give you the lineup here. Next, what are we doing? Next Wednesday on my TV show, Salt, Pepper, and Memories. Young lady by the name of Khadijah Renee is a jazz performer. She will be performing on my show. Be sure and tune in at 7 o'clock. If you don't know where it is, go to my website, ollihackettpresents.com. All of the information is on there. Thursday night, rememberthenradio.com. We'll be having our Thanksgiving show. What does that mean? That means the music that I will be playing will have food in it. So tune in and check that out. That ought to be interesting. All right. Next Friday on our podcast, our guest will be the legendary Mr. Billy Vera, the one who wrote the song At This Moment. So he's going to be our guest next week. And don't forget that if we get off at 10 o'clock from 10 until 2 in the morning, the radio show WPPM 106.5 FM or phillycam.org/listen. Yours truly is playing the oldies from now, 10 o'clock until 2 in the morning. What a beautiful way to start your Saturday morning, huh? Be sure and tune in. Yes, sir.
Let me leave the people. The direction to heaven is still the same. Make a right and go straight. And remember, when you can, God can. And when you won't, God will. Thank you, Mr. Hackett. Thank you.
I was not going to get off this microphone without you saying some final words. Let me just finish this up. Roger Weaver, Constance Moore, and Miss Carrie Brown, and some of you listeners out there, thank you guys so very, very much for tuning in because we try to make this show fun and informative at the same time, especially the informative part. Because as Reverend Joe Williams said, if you don't know where you're going, you definitely won't know where you've been. Rev, you can close us out with a prayer, or you can close us out with some of your one-liners.
Lord, let me thank you for this day, because this is the day you have made. And let us rejoice in this day. Glad to be on this side of the grave. Help us to remember when we can't, God can. And when we won't, God will. Thank you.
Thank you, Rev. Tell Mrs. Williams I said hello. Tell Sydney thank you. And Miss Peterson, thank you so very much for joining us. Everybody, have a great, great weekend. God bless you all. And we will talk to you next week, God willing.
All right. Bye-bye.